Add and subtract fractions with a common denominator. What do we do if we don't have our fraction pieces like we used in class the other day, and the denominator is not 2, 3, 4, 6, or 12? How do we solve these problems? Let's take a look at this one. 1/6 plus 3/4. Do you think you can do that in your head? If not, what are some strategies that we could use? My guess is no, we can't do that in our head, but we could use the strategy of finding a common denominator. So let's go ahead and put that down. That will be our strategy for the common denominator. And I'll go ahead and abbreviate denominator. You can write it out if you want. So that would be my strategy that I would use because that's why I cannot solve it. So what is a common denominator of 6 and 4? Remember, that's your LCM. What is your least common multiple? In this case, it's going to be 12. So if I make the common denominator of 12 for both of these fractions, remember, whatever I do to the bottom number to get to 12, I must do to the top number. And in this case, I multiplied by 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 4, I had to get to 12. In this case, I had to multiply by 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Now I can go ahead and I can solve these problems by saying 2/12 plus 9/12 equals what? Well, that will give me 11/12. Remember, we add the numerators and the denominator stays the same. Now let's look at making some other ones, making sure that we have a common denominator. Here, we could use our fraction pieces, but we could also use our knowledge of LCM. We know that 4 is a factor of 12, so I could use 12 as my common denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down as 12. And remember, whatever I do to the bottom number to get to 12, I must do to the top. Well, 4 times 3 gives me 12. So in that case, I need to multiply 1 by 3 to find out that's 3/12. 9/12, it already has a denominator of 12, so I don't need to do anything except carry it over. 3 plus 9 is 12, and my denominator is 12. So remember, when I have 12 over 12, it equals 1 whole. Let's look at the next one, 5/6 plus 2/12 equaling 1. Again, finding the common denominator. Well, in this case, I know 6 is a factor of 12, so 12 could be my common denominator again. So I'm going to make mine a little lower just so we can see it better. So here's my common denominator of 12. 6 times 2 gave me 12, so 5 times 2 will give me 10. I already have 12 for the other one, so that I could just add them together. Again, I have 12 over 12, which is the same thing as 1 whole. Let's look at one more. Here's another one where it doesn't equal 1. It equals 1/6 plus 1/3 equals 1/2. What would I need to do for that? Well, again, I need to rewrite it with a common denominator. In this case, I can see that the common denominator could be 6 because 3 and 2 are factors of 6. Remember, if we don't see it, we're finding our LCM. So let's go ahead and write that down. So I have 1/6 plus, well, I have to change 3 to 6. I multiply by 2. I need to do the same thing at the top. Well, 1 times 2 is 2. In this case, I have 1 plus 2 is 3. Denominator is 6. And if I simplify that, I do get my 1/2. What if I had to do a subtraction problem? It is no different. Find your common denominator. Again, it's going to be 6. So we're going to go ahead and write that down. 2 times 3 gave me 6, so I must do the same thing to the top. 1 times 3 is 3. Minus, well, 3 times 2 gave me 6, so I need to do the same thing to the top. 3 minus 2 is 1. Denominator stays the same. Here's another subtraction one. 1/2 minus 1/6 equals 1/3. Again, common denominator, your LCM is 6. Go ahead and write those all down. We know it's going to stay 6. So 2 times 3 gave me 6. 1 times 3 is 3. The 1/6 was already there. I don't need to do anything to it. 3 minus 1 is 2. I can simplify that to 1/3. Remember, if you can't see it, find your LCM. Let's look at some more examples. Remembering, if we get an improper fraction, we must change it to a mixed number. Now here I have 1/2 plus 7/8. Again, I need to find my LCM or my greatest common, or my least common multiple, or a common denominator of 2 and 8. If you're not sure, we can go ahead and use our LCM, pull out our chart, or get out your multiplication chart. Here you could use your multiplication chart to go down, put your fingers on 2 and 8, and see what they have in common. In that case, I'm going to see that it is 8. I'm going to go on back to my page, but if you need your multiplication chart in front of you, please have it. So in this case, it's going to be 8. So common denominator is going to be 8. What did I do to 2 to get to 8? I times it by 4. I must do the same thing at the top. 1 times 4 is 4. Carrying down the 7. In this case, I just add the numerators. I have my common denominator, so I can see that it's going to be 11/8. This is an improper fraction. Remember, I need to change it to a mixed number. How many groups of 8 can I take out of 11? That's going to be 1. And how many left over? Is going to be 3 out of 8. Let's look at number 6. 2/5 plus 2/3. Again, I need a common denominator. If I can't see it, it's my LCM. Otherwise, remember, you can always just multiply the denominators together to get a common denominator. You may just need to simplify a little bit more. So let's see what my common denominator can be. Well, 5 times 3 is 15, so I think that's going to be my best bet. So I'm going to have a common denominator of 15. I'm going to scoop mine over just a little bit. And the denominator will always stay the same, so I can put that in. 5 times 3 gave me 15. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 5 gave me 15. 5 times 2 is 10. So now I have 6 plus 10 is 16. Again, it is an improper fraction, so I must rewrite it. How many groups of 15 can I take out of 16? That's 1. I'm going to put it below here, and I have 1/15 left over. Now let's look at the next one. 1/9 plus 5/6. Again, I'm looking for my LCM. If you don't see it, get out your multiplication chart, put your fingers on 9 and 6, and see what they have in common. In this case, it's going to be 18. What did I do to 9 to get to 18? I multiplied by 2. 1 times 2 is 2. What did I do to 6 to get to 18? Multiplied by 3. 5 times 3 is 15. If I add 2 plus 15, I get 17 over 18. And 17 is a prime number, so I do not need to simplify. The same thing happens with subtraction. It is no different than addition. You're still finding a common denominator. If you don't see it, you can multiply the denominators together or use your multiplication chart. 5 times 4 is 20. I'm going to use that as my common denominator. What did I do to 5 to get to 20? I multiplied it by 4. I need to do the same thing to the top. 4 times 4 is 16. What did I do to 4 to get to 20? I multiplied by 5. 5 times 1 is 5. Again, this is subtraction now. Don't get confused. Look at your signs. 16 minus 5 is 11. The denominator stays the same, which is 20. Let's look at another one. 7/8 minus 2/3. Again, multiply your denominators together to find a common denominator. So that would be 8 times 3 is 24. What did I do to 8 to get to 24? I multiplied by 3. Do the same thing to the top. 7 times 3 is 21. What did I do to 3 to get to 24? I multiplied by 8. 8 times 2 is 16. Again, we are subtracting. So 21 minus 16 is 5 over 24. 5/9 minus 1/3. Again, finding a common denominator. Well, in this case, I can see that it's going to be 9 because 3 is a factor of 9. So 5/9 would just stay. What did I do to 3 to get to 9? I multiplied by 3. 1 times 3 is 3. 5 minus 3 is 2, so this would give me 2/9. Let's look at this bottom story problem. Daniela has 1/2 of a bag of potting soil. She uses 1/3 of the bag to plant some flower seeds. How much does she have remaining? Well, in this case, since we're looking for what's left, it is a subtraction problem. So it would be 1/2 minus the 1/3 that she used. What do I get? Well, I need to find my common denominator. Well, in this case, 2 times 3 is 6. That will be my common denominator. What did I do to 2 to get to 6? I multiplied by 3. 1 times 3 is 3. What did I do to 3 to get to 6? Multiplied by 2. 2 times 1 is 2. And if I subtract, I have 1/6 of the potting solid left over. Here's just a little cartoon of some kids that have done it and used in different ways, finding a common denominator. There is more than one way to find a common denominator. You need to use the best method for you, whether it's multiplying the denominators together, finding the LCM, or just using your multiplication chart. Here are some more examples for you to try. I will do a couple with you, and you can do the rest. Again, use your chart if you need it. Get out your multiplication chart. What does 3 and 7 have in common? What is my common denominator? In this case, it's going to be 21. Because 3 times 7 is 21. Then what did I do for 3 to get to 21? I multiplied by 7. 7 times 1 is 7. What did I do to 7 to get to 21? I multiplied by 3. 3 times 3 is 9. And in this case, we are using addition, so make sure we're watching our signs. If I add 7 plus 9 is 16 over 21. And that would be in simplest form. Here are some additional ones I want you to try. I'm going to do a couple more with you just to give you an idea. Let's look at number 18. 18 has the 1, and then it has 3/4 and 1/5. Well, the common denominator is going to have to be 20 because 4 times 5 is 20. So in this case, I'm going to change the 1 to 20 over 20. Remember, if the numerator and the denominator are the same, it's 1 whole. Minus the 3/4, well, let's put the common denominator of 20. Whoops, excuse me, wrote that a little wrong there for you. 4 times 5 gave me 20. 3 times 5 is 15. 1/5 is 20. 5 times 4 gave me 20. 1 times 4 is 4. Now I can start subtracting, going from left to right. 20 minus 15 is 5. 5 minus 4 is 1. That gives me 1 over 20. Make sure you go from left to right. Look at the next one, number 19. It has a whole number. We're going to go ahead and just bring that along in this case and find the common denominator of 42 and 21. In this case, it is going to be 42. If you can't see it, go ahead and use your multiplication chart or find the LCM. What did I multiply 21 by to get to 42? I multiplied it by 2. 17 times 2 is 34. Oh, excuse me. 32 plus 34 is 60. Oops, I'm sorry, that should have been 31, not 32. I made a mistake there. Let me just double check this for me. Didn't copy down correctly. Make sure you're always double checking that because that does make mistakes. That's 1 keeps coming along, and I have 65 over 42. Again, go ahead. We have an improper fraction, so we must simplify this. I can take how many sets of 42 out of 65? Well, that means I can take 1 more, so 1 plus 1 is 2. And how many do I have left over? I have 23 out of the 42. So in this case, those whole numbers are just coming along. The same thing works for subtraction as well as in number 20. I keep the 1, find the common denominator of 4 and 8. In this case, it's going to be 8. That will be my common denominator. 4 times 2 gave me 8, so 3 times 2 is 6. 5/8 already has a denominator of 8, so I don't need to do anything. Since I can subtract 5 from 6, I just bring the 1 along, and 6 minus 5 is 1, 8. Those are some examples for you. You try the rest before starting on your homework. As always, let me know if you have any questions.